We're live. Okay, guys. So we are live, and this is a very exciting live. We're joined with Dr. B. Very, very exciting. We are simulcasting, so this is very fun for us to do. So if you're joining us on multiple platforms, look at us. We're so tech savvy. Look at that. We can know about nutrition and health, and Dr. B is also super tech savvy, so we love it. And so you're watching this on Instagram or you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook. Welcome. We're very, very excited. Again, we're joined by the amazing Dr. B, the author of the new fiber fueled cookbook. So here it is
Yep.
right here. Really, really exciting. I want to get right into it because we could talk here for like 3 hours plus, if not the whole day. So,
Right.
I want to definitely utilize the time we have. So I really love the macro idea. First off, this big picture idea of gut health, the big picture idea of microbes and how it's affecting all of us. What is that big picture to you, Dr. B? Like, what are you seeing in this macro environment so far?
I'm seeing planes of existence that run in parallel, and it's just a question of, are you zooming in or are you zooming out, right?
Right.
So we act as if these microbes don't exist. Are we good, by the way? Is the audio okay for you guys?
Yeah, I believe so. Are
Okay,
you are
cool.
you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we see there are these microbes, and they're invisible to the naked eye, and it makes it very easy for us to pretend that they're not there. But
Hmm.
if I handed you a microscope, you would zoom in and you would discover that there's this world that exists as a part of your body. It's on your skin, in your mouth, on your eyeball, most concentrated though in your colon. And like it is alive and it is teeming and it is you would see that these microbes, like they're unique. They have their own personalities, they have their own food preferences, they have their own skill sets, and they start looking a lot like human life on this planet,
Hmm.
right? And you zoom out and you see us, look at like society, and you discover that um, it's, I kind of feel like society is dysbiotic right now. Like we, the humans, are the dysbiosis, right? And that
Hmm.
dysbiosis is negatively impacting the health of the world as
Right.
a result, not just the health of humans. Like it is affecting the health of humans, but it's also affecting the health of this planet.
Yeah.
And if you zoomed out further from there, you would just see this blue marble, and you would have to accept that there are 8 billion humans down there, but you couldn't see them, right?
Hmm.
So it ends up all like sort of running in parallel from my perspective is like, it's just amazing these planes and layers of existence. And who knows when you start zooming out from galaxies, what you even find out there, honestly,
Dude.
right?
Mhm.
I love that. I love that picture you're painting because it is this macro, like we are these microbes. I mean, it's all about perspective, right? And that's really what I want to dive into with you is like is this context and this perspective because I love that we do give those analogies all the time of like these ecosystems and it's just like what level of ecosystem are you looking at? Are you looking at the microscopic ecosystems? Are you looking then the middle ground ecosystems? Then as you like you said, if you go beyond galaxies and all the and pan out so far, like where are we in this ecosystem, right? And it's so cool to think of it. And there's so many parallels. Like where are we saying we're like an inside out garden, right? So I see so many parallels when I garden in the backyard and in our gut health, right? What are we seeding? What are we growing? What are the
Right.
microbes in the soil doing? So I love that. Really, your book, the Fiber Fuels Cookbook, it really starts to then get into because I feel like Fiber Fueled, the original book, really got into the why. Like you really told a
Yeah.
great story and gave an amazing summary cliff notes of like the latest research as the why. And now we're kind of crossing over into the how a bit, right? Because
Yeah.
it's great. Like eat more plants and diversity and you need this fiber and fiber fueled and then there are tons of people out there right now going like my stomach hurts when I do that. I
Yes.
don't feel good. I break out in hives, et cetera, et cetera. So explain that. Like, what were you seeing? How is that for you when kind of putting this together?
Well, I think it's kind of looking at the context and like how this all played out for me in my life, where,
Hmm.
Fiber Fueled was this passion project. And I felt, you guys are hearing an echo too.
A little bit, yeah. I'm trying to see where that's
I
exactly
think it's
coming
probably
from.
coming from things playing through the IG Vive because I can't
I
literally
think
turn the sound
so.
off of the IG Vive
Mhm.
completely.
That yeah.
So,
Should we abandon the IG Live for now?
hold on, I just muted it. Maybe that's better.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that we're
yeah,
good.
that
Okay,
is.
cool.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so anyway, what I would say is that when I wrote Fiber Fueled, this journey started way before the book came out in 2020. I mean, this was a journey that started really in 2012 when I was
Mhm.
personally sick and I needed a solution.
Mm.
And my medical training at great institutions did not provide a solution to me.
Mhm.
And it was the discovery that changing my diet was essential to getting my
Mhm.
health back. And when this happened, it changed my life because it really motivated me as a doctor. My
Mhm.
goal, my mission is to be a healer. And when you discover something that completely transforms your own life, how could you deny that to your own patients? How could you
Mhm.
not provide that to your own patients? And unfortunately,
Right.
the challenge is that the system is not designed to allow this.
Right.
Because basically, I mean, it's not to say that it's illegal. It's not illegal. It's not malpractice. This is
Mhm.
completely evidence-based. But what it is that doctors are not educated on this.
Mhm.
And then in addition, so you have to basically take the education up on your own. And then in addition to that, the way that the system is structured, there is no compensation or reimbursement for taking the time to talk about preventative care or
Mhm.
diet and lifestyle, except in very specific scenarios that don't apply to my career as a gastroenterologist. There is no scenario as a gastroenterologist in my entire career where I have been paid for giving dietary advice. I've never once taken a penny for it.
Right.
And you
Mhm.
decide that it's worth it. You
Mhm.
decide that it's worth it. But guess what? You're going to take a six-figure pay cut
Right.
because you're basically what you're doing is you're substantially reducing the number of patients that you're allowed to see during a given day because a good dietary conversation is 10 or 15 minutes. You're not going to do it in 2 minutes.
Mhm.
Right? So that means
Mhm.
you book less patients, and when you book less patients, you're basically costing yourself your bottom line because the
Right.
overhead, the expenses, the paychecks for your employees, the supplies, those don't decrease,
Mhm.
right? But what
Mhm.
decreases is your productivity and your revenue. So,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
so anyway, this is sort of the challenge that we have, and but for me, it was like I maybe it was stupid, honestly. I'm being totally serious. Like maybe this was stupid of me to do this,
Mhm.
but I just felt like I had to, right? And my wife never said to me, "Hey, Will, you making money?" Right? I mean, we
Mhm.
were living paycheck to
Yeah.
paycheck in our family. She never said that to me. So
Right.
she hung with me. She hung with me through this, and
Mhm.
um, I just kind of got to a point though where like the healing was off the charts. This wasn't just like an idea. This was healing. These are real people. Their lives are being transformed.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
need to share this message.
Yes,
I need to get the word out.
and you've done such an amazing job with it, and we know as one-on-one providers, and I think people are on Instagram are not able to hear you after being muted, um,
Oh,
which,
no!
we can
Yeah, you know what? I think should we abandon?
yeah, if you don't mind the echo,
You know
we
what
can
I could
keep
do?
going there, or we can always
I could
stop it.
go I could go find my headphones. I don't know where they are, but I could go find my headphones and put one headphone in a ear to connect to Instagram, and
Mm,
that would probably take care of it.
okay.
You wanna try
Just
Yeah,
that?
if
wanted
you
to do
want
that.
to.
Let's
Yeah,
Alright.
try, I guess,
and
or
if the
whatever's
echo
easier for
doesn't
you.
bother you, it doesn't bother us either. So we're working on it, guys. We hear you. We're reading your comments that
Oh,
we
here they
you
are.
guys can't
Got
hear
it,
Dr.
perfect.
B.
Okay.
Perfect. So he's got it because we want you guys to hear this message. It's so important. And what we do know as one-on-one providers is we love it. And I love, love, love hearing each individual person's health journey and health story. And it's so impactful for me as a provider and hopefully for the patients for me to listen to them. But what you've done is you've gone from helping however many people you were seeing in a day as a gastroenterologist providing one-on-one service to now you're serving thousands. And so I think that that's been a beautiful thing. And what I was telling James is really your first book, Fiber Fueled, this was really the what and the why. And
Yeah.
so if people really want to understand that, the roots, if people want to understand a little bit more about that, they can read that. And then the cookbook, which is out now, you guys, for you to order, this is the how. So this
Right.
makes it really exciting, where it's like, okay, I know what's up, but I want to know what to do about it. So I think you've really done such a beautiful job of that. And, like you said, you really took a chance of doing this, but you saw the need and you stepped up to fill it. And so we love that. We were hearing about that. And now everyone on Instagram can hear that too.
Yeah,
Perfect. Yeah, and this is a completely needs-based thing. So like fiber fueled was okay. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a revolution in science. It's actively taking place, like literally happening right now. It's changing the way we think about human health. It's making us discover that human health actually depends on things that aren't even human.
mhm.
And the key
Mhm.
turns out to be fiber. And 95% of us in the United States are not getting enough fiber. And now here we are, and 6 of the top 10 causes of death in the United States are potentially preventable by quite simply adding more fiber. Okay, so that's the message for fiber fuels when we get the word out.
Yes.
But then it's, as you guys said, like there are people who like keeping it completely real. There are people who eat this way and they don't feel well.
Mhm.
And they question and they say, "Oh, it's wrecking my gut. Being fiber fueled is wrecking my gut."
Mhm.
Let's fix that. Because it's not wrecking your gut. It's that your gut is not in a good place to begin with. And we have to
Mhm.
fix your gut so that you have the complete ability to add whatever food you want and eat it in abundance without restriction. And we can do it. And that's what, that solution does not exist in the healthcare system.
Mm-mm.
And the
Mhm.
solutions that do exist are a waste of money and they create confusion.
Yes.
So let me
And
step in a resource.
I love that, and that's why we vibe with you so much, Dr. B. It's like blaming deforestation, right? Or it's like blame like this rat infestation. We're blaming like, oh man, we cut the trees down, and let's blame the rats, right? For now coming in this new ecosystem, and now we have a abundance of rats, and it's like, oh, it's all the rats' fault. Well, it's like, well, there was massive deforestation, which led to a loss of biodiversity, and now these other animals are coming in and trying to take over and make the best out of the situation. We're blaming it on these animals and not seeing the clear cut forest and going like, hey, what about that? Like, don't you think that affected this entire ecosystem first? And then the rats just saw an opportunity, right? Like these opportunist microbes that we have, and they're just capitalizing on that opportunity. Like it makes so much sense when you pan out and when you again give it that context. And I love it. I mean, so many people are just so quick to kind of blame the food. Oh, it's the broccoli's fault. Oh, plants are bad. I mean, how are you feeling about that? I mean, I can imagine. I mean, I know you're frustrated, but like, speaking on that, we're just kind of blaming where there's even doctors out there now going, it's plants are bad for you. They have like all these antioxidants in plants. They're poison, and it's
Go
crazy.
keto, go
It's a
carnivore,
little,
avoid plants at all costs. Yeah.
yeah, it's a little odd to say the least.
Doctors of what?
Right, yeah,
So,
I use that term loosely.
well, because the issue is this, within healthcare, there are rules.
Right.
You're not allowed in healthcare to do whatever the F you want and maintain
Mhm,
your medical license and also be safe from liability and potential lawsuits. There
mhm,
are standards of care, and you will notice that the organizations that recommend dietary interventions are recommending some variation of plant predominant diet.
mhm,
And the people who are recommending the antithesis of this, I don't think they're practicing medicine in the United States. I know that their medical license has been challenged,
mhm.
in
Mhm.
some cases taken away. And
Yeah.
like you're not an actual practicing doctor if you're just like simply in another country talking on the internet as a talking head. That's not providing care, and you can get away with it. Are you legally going to be held accountable for that? No. But people will suffer when you give them bad
Mhm,
advice based
Yeah.
upon misinformation that is not looking at the um, preponderance, the overwhelming amount of evidence. I mean, look, if we want to make the claim that smoking actually protects you from lung cancer, believe it or not, I can dig up the studies to say that.
right.
Mhm.
They do exist. We can find studies that say that smoking actually protects you from lung cancer.
Mhm,
Is that true? because I can find one study that says that? Absolutely not. The overwhelming evidence says that smoking causes lung cancer. We all know that. Come on.
Mhm. And this is where I think the longevity of data, looking at so many, again, the context. I keep going back to context, and that's what your books, why they're so amazing, because they're giving that context. Um,
And they give context, but they also give strategies. So I like I mentioned with the Fiber Fueled Cookbook, it's not just a cookbook, you guys. So if you haven't checked it out, if you haven't picked it up, it is not a cookbook only. It is, and it's so much more than that. When I read it, I was like, whoa,
yeah.
this is mind blowing. So it gives strategies. I love how you mentioned things like the big three to rule out prior to jumping into an elimination diet. So, or the big three of food sensitivity. So, really talking about things like constipation. You're the king of those amazing, beautiful poops, right? And really encouraging people do all that you can to really try to help yourself have those amazing, beautiful, epic dumps, right? And if you're not there,
Happy to be
why
that
aren't
king,
you
Dahlia.
there?
I'm happy to take that throne.
We'll give you a nice little crown. um, but if you're not having that, why? And really encouraging people to learn of the why. So are you, why are you constipated? Is it celiac disease? Are you having gallbladder dysfunction? And I know in both your courses and the other book, you've talked also about other things that have really been eye-opening and life-changing for a lot of people. I know because I see a lot of people who either took your course, have read your books, and they're like, I finally connected with a pelvic floor therapist and I figured out that was going on. I finally was able to deal with some childhood trauma that I had. And that really encouraged me to do so. So you're really out here, you're doing God's work. And this book is really cool because it encourages people to dive into that. And the growth strategy, I'd love to hear more about the growth strategy that's in the book for those who haven't picked it up yet, and kind of what motivated the growth strategy for people to really have kind of the systematic way of going about understanding a little bit more about their gut and their gut health.
One of the things that I always want to do is to take complex science-based topics that are nuanced and create ways to introduce them to a layperson so that they can actually understand and have an approach to them that actually like it makes sense and it's manageable and it's doable.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so with this book, I decided that I wanted to take the topic of food intolerance. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. There's a reason why there aren't who's the other person writing a book about food intolerances? Where is this person? Right? So people are focusing on obesity and weight loss and longevity because those books sell. I would rather create a book about fixing problems. And because I know that 20% of the people in the United States have this problem, and I think I can help you with it. And there's really not a great resource for it. So this ultimately led me like I started writing in January 2021, and it was like early March of 2021 that I had this moment where it was like revealed to me this idea of the growth strategy, and I actually pivoted. I immediately emailed everyone who was involved with the book, and I said I just had a breakthrough, but I also need to change the way I'm writing this book, and we're going to make the entire book about this, the growth strategy. So I actually discarded a lot of writing. And the what it is, so like growth is a word that I love. It's a word that I want to embody my community. I did not invent the word. Carol Dweck really sort of popularized it with her book Mindset, which is about having a growth mindset. And I talked about this in Fiber Fueled. I didn't know this was going to become a thing, but the growth mindset is like I value progress. I value effort. I don't make it about winning versus losing because sometimes you're going to lose even though you deserved to win, right? So that's the way the world works. Well, so I love the word to begin with, but it became the step by step, letter by letter strategy that you can follow if you have digestive health issues. Focused on food intolerances, but not just that, just like literally globally. If you have digestive health issues, this is the way that I would approach these issues. And frankly, this is the way that your physician should be approaching these issues or your healthcare provider. So we start with G. G is Genesis. Genesis, like, what is the root cause of our problem? The entirety of our success as healthcare providers is 100% dependent on accurately identifying the problem. And the patient walks into the room and they say, "Doctor, what are we going to do?" That's the first question. They want to know the solution. But before we start working on a solution, we have to understand the problem. If you want to create good solutions, the accuracy of understanding the problem translates into accuracy in creating great solutions. So let's really invest into that first. And this is where I talked about, Dahlia, the big three of food sensitivity. I talked about a number of other medical conditions and gave some tips for each of them on like how you can talk to your doctor for the questions that you should be asking. So now, once you kind of understand what the issue is, do you have food intolerances? Because if you do, we should know what they are. Let's identify what the food intolerances are. Well, here's the problem. There's no test that's going to tell you this. Like, it'd be a lot easier if there were, but unfortunately there is not. So what we need to do is we need to have an approach that we can follow that's actually going to answer this question for us. By the way, I apologize. There's like, I'm a real person and there are people doing construction downstairs that I didn't realize. So sorry for that. But what can we do to actually figure out what's causing this issue? Well, we can ROW, restrict, observe, work it back in. If you line up a food, if you ask the question, is this food causing my food intolerance? If you remove the food temporarily, emphasis on temporarily, and your symptoms improve, okay, we're onto something. And then if you work it back in and your symptoms recur when you work it back in, okay, I'm pretty sure we have shown that you have a food intolerance. That's the way that we go about doing this. Now that we've gotten through GROW, GROW, we are now in a position of empowerment and strength because we actually know not only what is causing our problems, but also what foods we are intolerant to, and we want to work on them. So what do we do next? We train our gut. T stands for train your gut. Your gut is a muscle. It can be trained. It can be made stronger. It can be fortified. You can restore function that's not currently there. You can bring it back. This is like building up to a marathon. Could I run a marathon? 26.2? Heck no. But if you give me 4 months and you let me train and you let me build up my body is capable of amazing things. I may not be able to do it today, but my body is adaptable. And guess what? The most adaptable part of your entire body is your gut microbiome. It's amazing what it's capable of doing. And the changes that you make today will be reflected by tomorrow. Now, the last letter is actually my favorite letter, and that is H. H stands for holistic healing. Holistic healing basically means, you guys, let's not just focus on your diet. Let's not just focus on your gut and your gut symptoms. Let's step back. Let's look at the complete person. Who are you? You're not just a gut. You're a human being, right? Who are you and what's going on in life? And what are the other things that are going on that may be connected back to the gut that we need to know about? Well, it turns out that things like, for example, trauma. And when I say trauma, there are many forms of trauma, not just the crazy stuff or like the intense stuff, but like it could be a bad relationship. It could be a job where you're unhappy, right? It could be the stress of taking care of a child or another person. There are so many versions of what this is, and I am not the one who gets to define it. There's no one who gets to define it other than you. Like ultimately, this is turning inwards on yourself and saying, is there something in my life that is unsettled? Is there something in my life that is troubling me and bothering me? And you guys, you know this. The greatest miracles that happen in healing are not the ones where I tweak a person's diet. Like that's predictable. That's so obvious. That's so easy. The greatest miracles in healing are when you allow a person to see and understand for the first time that this thing that's in their life that's unsettled, and it may even be in their non-conscious mind, it's not even in their conscious mind, is actually the thing that's holding back the health of their gut. And that when they actually create a plan to fix that, the gut gets just like it's on a rocket ship to health. It's like incredible.
Absolutely. And I think it's so great that you talked about holistic healing in such a way where I think people are now starting to misinterpret it, where it means take a bunch of supplements, take a bunch of herbs, and restrict your diet because then you'll feel better, right? If we're taking antimicrobial herbs, that's just knocking everything out that you don't want there. If you're just not eating those foods, then you won't have the symptoms. And, James gives this analogy sometimes where it's like getting very deeply in debt and just being like, well, I'm just going to rip up the bills and then I'm not in debt. It's still there. So I love how with that growth strategy, Yeah, and then you want to buy a car or finance a house, and it's like, no, dude, you're in debt. You can't have those things.
Yeah, you're
Um,
like digging yourself deeper and deeper into a hole, right? I
totally.
mean,
So
basically short-term gain, if any gain, but clear long-term loss.
long-term loss. And I think it can be misleading. So not only with these overly restrictive long-term restrictive diets, but really just adding so many other things unnecessarily, it's almost burying the problem further, where
Yeah.
you're distracting yourself, right? You're saying it's going to be this supplement that helps me, it's going to be this restrictive diet that helps me, where all along there's that trauma underlying, there's pelvic floor dysfunction underlying, there's gallbladder dysfunction underlying. So I really so wholeheartedly appreciate that as a provider who's also just more integrative, right? And I think people misunderstand integrative or even holistic healing to be like woo woo and, just taking a bunch of herbs and hoping and praying things away. But really, that integrative health comes when you do dive deep, you do want to do more introspective learning and do more in understanding. And sometimes that healing brings initially about more pain. I think of sometimes with my patients, they'll come to me. I think of one patient in particular. She came to me and, her BMI was 50 plus, and her habits, she didn't exercise, was drinking 12 sodas a day, ate no fruits and vegetables. And initially, when she came to me, she was like, yeah, I kind of just think I should see a dietitian. And she was fine, right? Her body was kind of in survival mode. Her
She's fine.
her blood sugar was fine. Her gut health was fine per her at that time. No bloating, no gas, no discomfort. Her blood pressure was fine. And then we started working together. She disappeared for a little while and then came back after she suffered a tragedy. And she was like, you know what? I'm not fine. And so now that we've started peeling back these layers, things are becoming revealed. Where now, sure enough, her blood sugar is in the range of prediabetes, diabetes. Her blood pressure is higher now. Her cholesterol is higher now. She's had things that have come about, which were probably there, but suppressed. And so sometimes with that healing process, you unearth things that you probably didn't have the capacity to deal with. Perhaps you were just in survival mode. But I think, these strategies like the growth strategy really do. They enable you to take that introspective look and ask, do I truly feel well? Am I really feeling better if it means that I'm having to cut out half of the foods that I really love and enjoy and should actually be really nourishing to my gut microbiome? Is avoiding fiber the solution? And if I do reintroduce it and it does reveal to me an intolerance, how can I go about navigating that? What is your advice to those who say, okay, I did it. I found that I did have an intolerance. Perhaps it was to FODMAPs, perhaps it was to histamines, and you have great recipes and great strategies for those people of how to kind of do a temporary elimination diet, and then you give advice also of slowly reintroducing. What would you say is your best advice to someone who's like, I just am really hitting a wall every single time, and I'm really working with my care team, and I'm hitting a wall? What's your best advice to somebody like that?
Let's go back to the growth strategy. All right. Let's go back to the growth strategy because when a person is failing, the first question in my mind is, do we properly understand what we're actually treating? And could there be something that we're missing? Quick example. There was a patient who I saw who she had failed with like, I think 6 different gastroenterologists over 10 years with her IBS. She got diagnosed with IBS, 10 years ago. From that point forward, everyone is like, okay, you're IBS. Here, we're going to treat your IBS, your IBS, your IBS. Well, she didn't have IBS. She had sucrose intolerance. No one had asked the question, what if we don't have the right diagnosis? We diagnosed the sucrose intolerance. By the way, sucrose intolerance is covered in chapter 6 of the new book. And it's something that can be tested non-invasively. That's what we did for her. And it affects people even who eat very healthy foods. So sucrose is table sugar. The average American's eating a ton of table sugar on a yearly basis. But even if you ate a perfect diet, which by the way doesn't really exist, but even if you ate a whole food plant-based diet with absolutely no processed foods, there's still sucrose in whole plant foods. And so you could still manifest the symptoms of a sucrose intolerance, which include gas and bloating and diarrhea. So they thought that she had IBS with diarrhea. She kept failing therapy, and that she was consuming sucrose without realizing this connection. And we did a breath test. It showed that she had this. I put her on an enzyme replacement. She was completely symptom free. She had 0 symptoms.
That's so amazing and so powerful. Again, it's things that are missed. And going back to something you said earlier of like, spending time with your patients, right? Like taking that time, making that investment. And I think this is the other side that a lot of patients don't see is these healthcare providers, whether it's in a big institution or a private practice, like making that investment. And it can be quite the investment of like, you know what, we're going to do 90-minute visits. We're going to do hour-long visits. We're going to host retreats, or we're going to do it. It's quite the investment, and on both sides, and it is taking that time so you don't miss these like huge things that can then come back, and you're like, man, we've been at this for like 6 months, 12 months, and we seem to be going backwards. Why? And when you're doing 5 or 15-minute visits in the traditional system, it's like not only one thing is likely to get missed, a dozen things can get missed, and here you are just kind of in the system over and over. So
Mhm.
it can be so frustrating on multiple levels in multiple ways. And this is so important that you're focusing on this and really making a simple way to prevent this from happening, especially in this sphere.
And just making it accessible, because you're no longer seeing one-on-one patients, but how many people can access you or access these providers who are giving that time, and
Mhm.
investing in that? So I love that you have these tools, these guides. You are informing people of these things so that way they can be more informed consumers, they can be more informed patients, they can bring these things to their medical care team and say, hey, have you ruled this out? Do we think it's sucrose intolerance? Is it possibly histamine intolerance? And that's so, so, so empowering for people. So that way they don't feel like these things are happening to them, but this is happening. Hopefully, we'll try to figure out why it happened, and then we'll figure out a strategy to move forward and continue to grow through it. So I
Well,
love that.
I'm of the belief, to be honest with you guys, that it's time for us to, as patients, redefine how healthcare works. All right, because the system, like the politicians, aren't going to change it. All right, so I mean, they can't get out of their own way. But we as patients have the ability to change this. It's time for us to abandon the paternalistic version of healthcare that was the past, where you would go to a one stop shop, single provider. They would tell you what to do. You didn't really understand. They didn't educate or empower you, and you just did what they told you. Those days are over. It's time for patient empowerment. It's time for individuals to have a say, to ask questions, when appropriate, to push back, and when needed. I'm not actually encouraging that we do this unless we really need to, because I actually think that the entire point of healthcare is about the doctor-patient relationship, or the healthcare provider and patient relationship. Like this is how we actually heal people, is that connection. But sometimes you need a new doctor. Sometimes you need a new healthcare provider, right? So to me, my role, what I was looking at after Fiber Fields came out and 200,000 people read it, and I was overwhelmed with the amount of attention that was coming my way. What I was looking at is a choice. Do you want to be one on one with a few hundred people who can afford to see you in your clinic? Or would you rather be out there leading the charge to the masses and trying to create a health revolution by providing resources like this book that you can get at your library for free, right? Or you can grab it today from your local bookshop.
Health revolution, baby. You went health revolution. That's what it is. It's so, man, I get pumped up like when the way you're talking, man, and just the way you're connecting the dots. It's so inspirational because it is. And then in my mind, I'm this like, this is where I am holistic, and I get this big picture mind, because then you start thinking of like growing your own food and like local food forests and edible land. I mean, it opens up this Pandora's box of like, man, like, wow, becoming more conscious, looking introspectively and going, I'm in control. Like I can, this is my care team, and I can change and kind of get rid of who I feel isn't serving me. And then, oh, I could grow my own food, and oh, I can start cooking more, and oh, beans are that cheap. And then you start going into like, I can sprout on my countertop. And I mean, it just starts opening this whole new world for people, and it really just expands in this like, take charge, join
Yes.
this revolution, join this fiber field revolution, right?
Yes.
And it's like
Make your
this,
own broths,
make your own
ferment
broths,
foods,
ferment
all
your own
that.
food. It is so, so
Make
cool.
your own
And it
sourdough.
is, make your own sourdough. And it's this, it's like seed.
Yes.
Again, I go back to all these gardening analogies where like, you can plant one little spearmint plant and that thing will take over your whole garden. And then you can make tea and
Agreed.
you can dry it and you can do all these cool things with it. And it's just from this tiny little seed that one person can become a million people, a billion people, and we can change things. And it's
Right.
really powerful. So I
Yes.
love that, dude. It's so
And
cool.
it can't be further from the truth. I think it's taking back the control. The first step to doing that is understanding how you got where you were, finding people, finding allies in your care team who can help you understand what you can do about it now, educating yourself and looking at resources like the Fiber Field Cookbook. So that way you have ideas of, if you need a strategy like the growth strategy, how can you go about doing that? So we have so much more control than we ever could have imagined. I think if you do find yourself in that position where, like Dr. B mentioned, you sought out care, you were handed a handout and said, come back and see me in 3 months, hope all is well in that time, but you're looking for more answers, there are resources out there for you guys. The Fiber Field Cookbook certainly is a fantastic resource if you guys want to understand a little bit more about the why behind it. The Fiber Field book also is wonderful. But we hope that this has been empowering. I think at the end of the day, that really is kind of our message. Our goal, our mission is to help people heal with each meal. And Dr. B, you are such a champion of that. We are so appreciative of all that you do. And, we know that that's our message, to help people heal with each meal. But what gets you up and going and just going? We always are asking you, like, where do you find all this energy? But what is your why? I want really people to understand that before we end here in a couple minutes.
Well, I mean, I think it really comes back to, I'm in this almost 42-year-old body, and I still feel like I'm a kid. And the kid in me was this guy that decided that he wanted to be a doctor, and the mission was to be a healer. The mission was to try to use my work ethic, my education, my experience, to use it to help people. And I relentlessly pursued the goal. If you look at my resume, you will see that during the 16 years that I was doing my education, I relentlessly pursued that goal. And when I discovered the power of diet and lifestyle, I started relentlessly pursuing that goal. And it really comes back to like that I feel like I am living my life's purpose, which is this is what I was called to do. And it's unique. This is not where I predicted that I would be. I'm outside the box of like the sort of expectation that I had for myself when I was younger. But I'm actually doing what I see though is that the purpose is the exact same purpose. I'm just actually doing it on a higher level than I was expecting to be.
Love that.
Beautiful.
On that note, we're sending all of you watching, all of you connected. If you're watching another time, this high vibe. We wish you all healing and health and wellness. We hope this has inspired you, educated you, and continue on your journey. Right. So, thank you, Dr. B. This was a absolute pleasure. We love your mission. We love your passion.
We love the book and the
Love the book.
delicious recipes that are in it.
It is so great to talk to you as always, man. This is always such a pleasure. So thank you all for tuning in. We hope to be back with Dr. B in the future. There's still so much to talk about and touch on. So we'll definitely see Dr. B again
Let's do it
on
again.
our channels, and we'll do this again. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. B.
Thank you, you guys, and thank you everyone for being here today. And yeah, we'll definitely let's do it again. Let's keep going. The conversations are great, so we might as well keep rolling, right?
We'll
All
keep rolling
right.
for
We'll
sure.
talk
All
soon.
right. Talk to you soon, man.
All right.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.